Okay, as one of the managing editors of Constellations, a cultural rhetorics publishing space, I wanted to share with you this exciting opportunity to submit your work to a new peer-reviewed journal in our field that is open access and accepts all media. Can't wait to see what you'll submit. No, they get more. I'm gonna put you. I'm gonna put Malia, Phil, and Cindy.
What about me?
I'm Jackie.
Shut up, you're just the tripod.
What I aim to do here is discuss the ways in which the editors of a nascent journal can best draw from their various skills and backgrounds in order to develop publication processes that result in a high-quality journal without taking over the editor's already packed schedules. From Jimmy Killingsworth and Betty Jones in the 1980s to Rebecca Anderson in 2013, technical writing scholars have theorized the most efficient ways of working through communal production of documents, from self-directed groups to centralized departments. Editorial work is likewise a shared task, and I will argue here that the more varied the background of those on the editorial team, the more limber and effective the board will be, especially if the editors are able to constellate each member's skills and previous experience. When I say constellate, I am referring to what Malia Powell et al. Explain when they write that constellating allows for multiply situated subjects to connect to multiple discourses at the same time, as well as for those relationships among subjects, among discourses, among kinds of connections, to shift and change without holding a subject captive. Constellating an editorial team means for members to work with each other and with other members of the larger team responsible for getting the journal published in a plurality of capacities, switching roles and approaches depending on the task at hand and on who our collaborators are at completing it. I began my editorial career back in 2009 when my fellow graduate students at Purdue University, Joshua Pernosil, Kristen Elder, Megan Schoen, Aaron Flugfelder, Caitlin Sprunk, and Alan Brizzi invited me to join them in founding a then unnamed journal. A year later, we published the inaugural issue of Present Tense, a journal of rhetoric in society. We were all graduate students and equally mystified by what academia looked like from the faculty side. We did have a desire to publish scholarship that would cross over into non-academic settings by being shorter than most articles and easy to understand while still addressing complex issues. We divided up in two groups, one for writing the text describing the journal, and the other for coding and designing the website that would house it. Even though I was on the writing team, I ended up attending the coding meetings as well, because I wanted to learn from those who could build things out of ones and zeros. Founding Present Tense was one of my favorite graduate school experiences. We were passionate about scholarship, argued politely over commas, and ended up creating a vibrant and innovative publication that is now on its 12th issue. Still, we were in some ways the blind leading the blind. A lot of creativity and experimentation can thrive in an environment like that, as it did for us. But here I want to discuss what I think is a rarer model for founding peer-reviewed journals. A blended editorial team made out of faculty and graduate students working together from the start, as we have done with Constellations. In order to say something of meaning in this short presentation, I'm limiting the scope of my discussion to the interactions between Constellations' three local editorial team leaders at Michigan State University, Editor-in-Chief Malia Powell, and Managing Editors Phil Bratta and myself. Part of the magic of founding Present Tense came from the fact that for the first year of the journal, we were able to have weekly meetings in person. Malia, Phil, and I do the same for Constellations. While we communicate with fellow editor Cindy Techaby, with authors, and with members of the editorial board through variations of online spaces, there is a particular constellated synergy that happens when you get three people from different ranks in a room on a regular basis that I want to explore here. First, let me tell you what experiences we bring to those meetings. Malia is a full professor whose administrative prowess ranges from being our department's chair to chairing Cs and everything in between. She also founded the peer-reviewed print journal Studies in American Indian Literatures and came up with the idea of Constellations as a journal of the Cultural Rhetorics Consortium, which also sponsors the Cultural Rhetorics Conference, the first of which she co-chaired with Phil back in 2014. I am an assistant professor, and besides my present tense experience, I also co-founded and am the editor-in-chief of Agnes Films, a digital publication for and about women filmmakers. I have little administrative experience and even less aptitude for it, but I've published articles and book-length pieces in a number of digital peer-reviewed journals, so I'm familiar with the digital publication practices from the author's side as well. Phil is a PhD candidate who has been with the consortium from the start. Besides co-chairing the first Cultural Rhetorics Conference with Malia, he has done the research and written the first drafts for the grants we applied to for the consortium. Because of Malia's administrative skills, Phil is actually paid to work on the journal for 10 hours a week. He is the one who keeps the many threads of the journal in check and who reminds us what needs to happen during each meeting and beyond. So what about this team's work is applicable to those hoping to found and edit journals of their own? 1. Our blend of experiences has allowed us to set up rich publication processes from the start. For example, unlike graduate students starting a journal, Malia knows that grant funding helps create a sustainable publication and knows what grants we can apply for and how to go about it. I, on my end, can draw from publication experience with digital scholarship to draft submission guidelines that are not too taxing on us or the authors, while displaying the work in the way the authors intended it to be. Within reason, of course. Phil is able to teach himself digital technologies with enviable tenacity. From InDesign to WordPress, he searches until he figures out what needs done and then does it beautifully. 2. We have clear yet flexible roles that are based on our skills and how much time we can devote to the journal. Malia's administrative background has allowed her to streamline our editorial processes so that each of us works on our particular strengths, and so that Phil, who is the one member of the team who has a set amount of time to spend on the journal, makes our work less time-consuming. He, for example, reads submissions and prepares a short report on them before we provide our own assessment on whether or not to send something out to reviewers. 3. We have weekly face-to-face meetings where those differences in experience and background at times turn into disagreements. Not ugly ones, but disagreements all the same. Malia and I don't seem to ever agree on font choices, for example. Being able to have these conversations in the same room and to express our views openly but without taking the discussion personally leads to the sorts of decisions that will make the journal stronger in the end. 4. We supplement our weekly meetings with meetings of just 2 of us at a time. Phil and I meet to work on design and website issues, while Phil and Malia work on grants, and Malia and I work on drafting and revising the submission guidelines. We constellate our skills and then report to the other member during weekly meetings. 5. We have excellent advisors who help us make the decisions that cannot and should not be made in small editorial teams. Whether it is a matter of the larger vision for the journal or how the relationship between Constellations and the consortium should unfold, we meet with the journal's editorial board at least once a year and seek their advice and ideas about what we, being so close to the editorial process, are unable to see clearly. Not all of these practices will apply to every journal, but some definitely will, and they can help create healthier and more sustainable editorial teams. The scholarship these teams publish will reflect the process and will help us innovate and continue to transform scholarly work with our journals and other publications.